Well, we are honored to have with us today New York Times bestselling author and journalist Aaron Klein. He has co-authored a book that really is shaking things up, Fool Me Twice. And he and Brenda Elliott have co-authored this book. There's a copy of it there on the screen. And let me encourage you to check it out at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com and get a copy of this book. Aaron, thank you for being with us today. It looks like you are on the edge of a bestseller.
Yeah, we're getting very close, but I think Americans really want to know specifically what Obama's second-term plans are, and that's exactly what Fool Me Twice unveiled.
All right, let's talk about that, because how were you able to get the data to give us an idea of what he has in mind?
Yeah, I'll tell you, a lot of people believe that Obama came out of nowhere in 2008, kind of just like dropped from the sky, and then somehow invented what became Obama's massive first-term stimulus, or the healthcare legislation, or a lot of his other first-term policies. Well, the thing is that these policies were crafted, were perfected over time by key progressive groups, by key progressive activists. And actually, these same groups, these same activists have been hard at work at Obama's second term. So the book, Fool Me Twice, is not guesswork. It's not that maybe based on what Obama did during his first term, based on ideology, this is what we think he might do. My co-author and I, we went through thousands of documents to find the exact blueprint. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be exactly the plans that Obama will implement as is 100% in the book, but this is the blueprint. This is the wish list for a second Obama term, and all policy plans on jobs, on healthcare, on immigration reform, on actually specific plans for your paycheck, on massive government intervention and more.
You know, we had an indication of this, that he was pretty much packaged when he got elected, and that's Obamacare. When you look at Obamacare and you see how carefully it was crafted and written, I constantly ask the question, who sat in a room and put those words on a piece of paper? Because that young man did not do that, and it was done too fast. So that it seems like to me that that thing was, you know, it was created months, if not years, before he ever took office.
Well, actually, Obamacare, by the way, goes all the way back to at least 2003 to something called the Economic Policy Institute, which wrote a massive paper that became what eventually was Obamacare. So actually, a lot of these policies are just progressive plans that were pushed quite some time ago, including by the Congressional Progressive Caucus and others. And you talk about Obamacare, actually, you look at Obama's main, I would say, election campaign issue. He talks about economic fairness. Well, what does that mean, economic fairness? Why doesn't a reporter ask Obama, what specifically do you mean? And so in the book, we find exactly what he means. There are massive second-term plans for fairness, so-called, for example, for paycheck fairness, which would be where the government would determine what would be the individual value of each job in the private sector, or at least they could, and then they could force employees, at least this is the plan, to pay that value. Or let's say living wage fairness, which is also a second-term plan that we have in Fool Me Twice, that would raise the minimum wage in the U.S. to meet what's known as basic needs. Now, this comes right out of Marxist ideology of food, of housing, of healthcare. And actually, I just want to stop myself and take a step back, because a lot of Americans might hear this and say, well, that sounds really good. Obama's going to come and raise the minimum wage. Well, the thing is, who's going to pay for this? The thing is, actually, it was attempted in the past, including in the 1990s, pushed by Acorn, by the way,
right,
in about 80 cities. And it failed miserably. In fact, it caused different local communities, like Baltimore, for example, their economies to crash and burn. So you hit the nail on the head that these policies did not come out of nowhere. In fact, they go way back, except they're back again in a more updated way for Obama's second term.
Well, Aaron, how come we didn't vet this guy? Now we're seeing some things, you know, of course, there's the birth certificate issue. Now there's the college issue. There seems to be a lot of gray areas. Why didn't we and the media better scrutinize who he is?
You know, I personally vetted him. I wrote a New York Times best-selling book called The Manchurian President, that detailed Obama's radical ties, all the way from Bill Ayers, which I was the first to report, through Rashid Khalidi and others, and Acorn, and also questions of eligibility. Not only the birth certificate, by the way, but even if Obama was born in the United States, and I haven't seen evidence that he was not born in the U.S., but there are questions about the PDF document online. There is the overall issue of what a natural-born American citizen means according to the Constitution. It could very well be that it means both parents need to have been U.S. citizens at the time of birth. But let's put that aside. But it's clear that most Americans either don't care about Obama's radical background, or they're not going to hear about it because of the mainstream media. And so what I'm doing here is taking, instead of his background, instead of his ideology, it's his actual plan, his very specific plans on all issues. Because, you know, to me, if Obama was an honest candidate and these plans truly were issues that the American public would support, then why is he not laying this out? Why do you not see Obama make a speech, right? He lays out his specific second-term agenda instead of still talking in these hallmark greeting card kind of catchphrases like fair share and economic fairness. So what I'm doing is taking the plans and laying them out.
All right, let's take a look at this a little bit more carefully. And I'm going to be self-interested here. What's going to happen to us who are in talk radio?
There are plans in the second term, away with this or not, but to try to indeed reinstate some form of regulation of the internet, of talk radio, of the airwaves. In fact, many Obama administration officials, including Cass Sunstein, although he just resigned, but others, have been trying to push this for quite some time. Actually, we came, myself and my co-author, onto some plans to regulate talk radio in the context of Obama's plans for a new green stimulus. That's right, a new green stimulus, as if the first stimulus in 2009 did so well, and as if we're not still, until today, uncovering more and more rank corruption. And the green stimulus, and also Obama's specific second-term plans on the military, including greening the military, by the way, including using the military to combat so-called global warming. Well, the foundation for all of this is global warming. And so if anybody out there, let's say talk radio, discusses the questionable science behind global warming, this is something that really does concern the progressives behind the Obama administration. And so in that context, we found them talking about the need to regulate talk radio in a second term.
Well, we see Obamacare now moving forward, and especially with this recent Supreme Court decision, his green agenda. What else do you see coming down the road if he's reelected that could really affect all of us?
Just what I was laying out before of paycheck fairness, of economic fairness, but that's just the beginning. Obamacare is the warm-up act for a second term of trying to nudge the U.S. closer and closer to a single-payer system using the model of Medicare, of Medicaid, of public children's health, where you would get more and more Americans on government care with the eventual goal of some sort of centralized single-payer system. And that seems to be the theme here, of more massive centralization and involvement in our private lives of the U.S. government when it comes to jobs, including, by the way, second-term plans for a national infrastructure bank, second-term plans to bring back FDR's Work Progress Administration, or at least the recreation of that, to build roads and bridges and tunnels, and so many other issues here that at the end of the day will translate into creating more of a welfare country, in that we would be more and more dependent on the U.S. government. And so I think that's what we need to focus on here in looking at Obama's second term, the overall agenda that of shifting the economy away from the private sector and closer toward more and more government regulation.
What would happen to banking under this second term?
Yeah, in fact, there's a second term plans to create, first of all, a new green bank. That's right, a federal energy trust that would be a federal bank that would loan and also subsidize more green projects. More regulation, of course, of Wall Street, of individual trades. In fact, there are second-term plans to impose taxes on each trade in Wall Street. It's called the Robin Hood tax, if they can get away with it. Now, some of these plans can happen through executive order. For example, immigration reform. Obama already issued a series of executive orders on this subject that kind of gave de facto amnesty to a few 100,000 young immigrants. Well, that's what he did in his first term. I can tell you in his second term, we're talking about massive de facto amnesty through executive order, through interagency directives as well, that would make it more and more difficult for border agents, for immigration officials to enforce the law, creating something called a vulnerable population. That's what it is defined as. In other words, illegal immigrants who have salaries and have families that are dependent on them. That's pretty much every illegal in the U.S. And then it would actually be against the law, according to these second-term plans, for the U.S. immigration officials to do anything about the vast majority of illegals. And then, taking it a step further, the plan is also to register these newly legal immigrants as voters.
All right, what few moments I have left, it would seem to me that if he's reelected and these plans go forward, that states and cities and municipalities just couldn't afford them, and we'll see more of them filing bankruptcy. How would that spoil his second-term plans?
It wouldn't spoil his second-term plans now, in that he hasn't enacted them yet. You're saying after he enacts them, he doesn't have anything to lose. Remember, he told Russian President Medvedev, during my second term, I'll have more flexibility. And so once he has that flexibility, once he imposes these plans, yeah, we have seen some of them cause local communities throughout the country, their economies to crash and burn. But more than that, look at Eastern Europe. Right now, Eastern Europe is moving away from this very system. And so at a time when we see the economies of Greece and so many others just collapse, we're now taking that model that has never worked and imposing it on steroids during a second Obama term. Wow.
Aaron, thank you. I wish I had more time with you, and I will get you back. It's called Fool Me Twice. Check it out. And again, Aaron Klein along with Brenda Elliott. There's a picture of the book there on the screen. Let me encourage you to check it out online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and soon to be a bestseller. It's just moments away from that happening. And it chronicles everything that we've talked about here with Aaron Klein. Thank you. Thank you for your passion and your work. Please do not give up. Keep going at it.
Thank you for having me.